This might be the hardest eyeshadow palette ranking that I have ever done because it is one of my favorite brands, Bella Beauty Bar, and I have 13 palettes to rank. There are 2 palettes that I purchased, the Pastel Garden palette and the Strange and Unusual palette, and the rest of them were sent to me in PR. And I do have an affiliate code with the brand, which I'll put up on the screen, and thank you so much if you do use my code. I want to preface this that none of these palettes are bad quality. It's really going to come down to preference, whether that's color story, shimmers, mattes, etc. I do technically have 2 other palettes, the Molten Chromes, which is a 6-pan of all shimmer shadows, and also the Angles of Illumination palette, which I have kind of taken apart, and I have those as single shadows. So I wasn't too sure if I should put them in here, but I decided not to. So in 13th place is the Melted Mattes palette, and this one really is only in 13th place because of the bottom 2 rows being neons, like pinks and oranges and yellows. They're not really colors I gravitate towards a lot, and I feel like this palette doesn't have a true kind of color story, but the formula is great. If anything, I will get most use out of the top 2 rows. So the 12th palette is the Sun and the Sea palette. This one is one of their earlier palettes, so the matte formula in here is not as good as the one in the newer palettes. Not that the mattes were ever bad, they're just even better now. In terms of color story, I think these 4 browns at the top are very redundant to have in here. There's not a lot of depth either, but I do really love the shimmers in here. For example, Heat Wave, Tide Pool, and Sandcastle are just so beautiful. I mean, look at this one especially. It's like glowing. I wish maybe there was like another purple and maybe a really dark brown matte up here instead of one of these shades. So that's why it is ranking in 12th place. In 11th place is the Bejeweled palette. This was a holiday release a couple years ago. It's a jewel tone dream. I love the amount of depth you have in here. These 2 purple shades are a little bit similar to each other. Blue Sapphire is absolutely stunning. I mean, these are super ultra pigmented. So this shade just fell out when I was wiping my finger off, but that's okay. I'm going to try to salvage as much as I can from it. I don't think that this color story is particularly unique. As much as I love it, I do think this will pair really nicely with the palette that's in 10th place. Just overall, another shade just fell out. Okay, I'm gonna put this down because I'm not sure why they're falling out. It's been on my shelf. It has not been getting banged up. It has not been moving around. It's literally been sitting on my shelf. At least that one didn't crumble. So let's get into the 10th place, and that is the Pastel Garden palette. And this is an all pastel palette, so there are no deepening up shades in here, which I don't really mind. I just like to go in here for like a little pop of pastel. The shimmers are so beautiful. I mean, Pansy, Thimble, some of these are a little bit squishy and a little bit emollient, but they are so shiny. This is the kind of palette that if you just really want to have just some variety of pastels, this is the palette for you, and you will not need anything else because you have all the possible pastels in here. Some of them are a little bit more vibrant than others as well, and I think the matte formula is really nice in here, and I think that palette will pair really nicely with the Bejeweled palette since that one has some more deepening up shades. So in 9th place is a Strange and Unusual palette, and I just did a video on this palette recently. I did purchase this one myself, and I really love the grunginess in here. I love the shimmers in here. They're just super special. Afterlife, Lost Souls, Tombstone, shimmers, and the theme definitely really do it for me for this palette. In 8th place is the Recently De-Influenced palette. I think it's clever and ironic. I love these kinds of plummy, deeper mattes. And then also the green in here is a little bit of a surprise, and then the matching kind of shimmer shade in here. Screenshot is just something else. Digital Zombie, I mean, will go down in history. Backlash as well. I mean, these are some really beautiful shimmers. Some of them are a little bit on the softer side, not fully like squishy and mushy in the pan, but they are a little bit softer. And of course, I love the oranges up here. So like the combination of the shimmers and the mattes together, I think just there's so many different looks to create with this palette. And then in 7th place is the Smoky Glam palette. Oh, this one is definitely a very large palette, but it is like everything you could possibly need for a neutral leaning look with some other tones as well. You have mauve, you have plum, you have some more olivey toned mattes as well. And the shimmers also go really well with the mattes. So they're kind of almost corresponding per row. So you could be using this palette per row and just do kind of more monochromatic kind of look, or you can kind of dip in between. And as every Bella Beauty Bar palette, I love the shimmers in here. So some of them are a little bit more textured, but the shades like down here are just so smooth and metallic and opaque, but I do wish they had more of a variation between them. Like if some of them was like a bit more greenish olive toned, and then maybe one a little bit more bronze and warmer, because they do look pretty similar, but that's also dependent on the mattes that you pair with them. So overall, I think this is a really great neutral kind of palette. If you have this palette, you're all set when it comes to these kinds of tones. Next up in the ranking is the Dead Roses palette, and I love this theme. I love this color story. I'm not one to really really gravitate towards pinks, but pinks and purples together, especially with some deeper tones in here, and these shimmers are so beautiful, and they're just so metallic. These look like liquid chrome, and they're definitely more on the smoky kind of side, but I just love this color story. I think this was very unique for a more Valentine's Day themed eyeshadow palette. Fifth place is the Secret Garden palette, and I just love pinks and greens together, especially these kinds of tones where you have some more olivey tones, but you also have some kind of brighter, like this brighter teal. And then I also love that there's a neutral row all the way at the top. I think it makes the color story even more versatile. I mean, there's so many different looks you could create. You could do some more monochromatic looks, or you could kind of contrast them. I also really like that some of the shimmers are a little bit more sheer, a little bit more topper-like, makes them really fun to put over the mattes and watch them transform. Some of the shades were a bit squishy. I did use a tissue to remove some of the extra binder in them. If you're wondering why there is a shade missing, part of a comparison, and I accidentally put it back with my single eyeshadow, so I gotta go and fish it out and put it back in, and that one was like a holographic neutral, and I just absolutely love that one, and I really hope to see even more shades like that from Bella Beauty Bar in the future. So in fourth place is the Ultraviolet palette, which is in collaboration with Deandra Nicole, and this is the purple palette of every purple lover's dreams. I mean, there's just everything you could ever ask for. I mean, Roxa who, because this is the purple palette. If you love purple, I mean, it doesn't get any more perfect than this. There's some pinks thrown in here as well, but it is predominantly a purple palette. I love purple. It is definitely one of my favorite colors to wear, and there's a really nice variety of shimmers in here. You have this one, and this one, and this one. I mean, they're so beautiful, and none of these shades were squishy, and I believe that this palette actually just restocked. It's a really well done palette. Now we're in the top 3, and this is really hard. If you've been keeping track, you might already have an idea kind of what this ranking is. And so in third place is the Basic Witch palette. This palette launched last year, and I just had another matte shadow fall out. At least it fell out like right into my lap. This used to be a really beautiful purple shade, and I just, like I said, I really love purples, but I love that there's some other tones in here. This kind of grayish purple, this really dark plum, and the shimmers again. So pretty, super shiny, pop of green. I really love this color story so much. So in second place is the Vamp palette. This is a newer palette from them, and it is just everything. Love the color story, love the theming, absolutely love the shimmers in here, especially Skin of a Killer. I need more like this. This is amazing. This texture is so beautiful. It is so sparkly, but very smooth. There's nothing overly textured in here with the exception of this one and maybe a little bit this one, but they do completely smooth out. Shadows has got to be one of the most unique shades I have seen. I could not dupe this one. It is such an interesting shade. It's grungy with some pops. You have some lighter shades, some midtones, as well as deepening up shades. So I really am enjoying this palette so much. It's the red and purple together with that dark blue just really pulling on my heartstrings. So in first place, can I get a drum roll please, is the Poison Garden palette. And the reason this one is ranking in number 1 above the Vamp palette, as much as I love the Vamp palette, is because I think this color story just has a little bit more variety to it versus the Vamp. And I also love the variation of the different tones in here. Like, the tones are just so perfect. These two, this one, like all of them just together in one palette. So beautiful. I will open this palette just to look at this color story. I feel so inspired by it. And then the shimmer choices in here, are you kidding me? I mean, Belladonna, again, I can't dupe this one. It's so beautiful. Wolfsbane, holographic, beautiful, more kind of neutral leaning, almost shadow. You can topper it over some of the mattes. Angel's Trumpet is just super vibrant. Wisteria, really glowy, iridescent. Love that these two bright blues are in here. You could do a little quad here. I just want to stare at this palette all day. It is such a beauty, and I'm always so excited to see what Bella Beauty Bar is launching next. We have some great ideas for themes and also color stories. So let me know in the comments below if you were shocked by any of these, and if you have some Bella Beauty Bar palettes, which ones are your favorites? I would love to hear your thoughts. And that's everything for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.